This is Joey DeMaio. Welcome. You're listening to Words of Power, brought to you by ValhallaStudiosNY.com. This is episode 1. Before I start telling you about today's episode, which is the first of what I hope will be a long series, I wanted to tell you a little more about the podcast itself. A lot of my family and friends and business partners have always encouraged me to do something like this. Those who know me know I'm not shy when it comes to talking, and I've always been told that the stories and experiences I've had, not just with MANOWAR, but in life in general, would be very appreciated by so very many people. And the truth is, I've always wanted to do something like this. I have coached and mentored many people personally and professionally, and it's very rewarding to know that when you've managed to help make at least one person's life better, and they tell you that, even if it's by 0.01% better, that's fine. And it makes one feel like you've really done something. As many of you know, I've gone through a lot of struggles in my life, but I've also received many blessings that balance things out and balance them out to the better. And it's a really good feeling to know that I can now offer something besides my music to people in any way that can be meaningful and helpful to them. And so I hope this podcast helps all of you to lead a life that's very, very powerful with these words of power. It's not just a saying, but it really is a mindset. And I hope that it'll hold you in good stead, as it has for me. It's been really rewarding to create this podcast, and I have a lot planned with a lot of amazing guests. So, okay, here it is, my first episode. And I have somebody that's really amazing. He's a person that I happened to meet by accident over the internet and connected with, and his name is Kevin McAuliffe. He's a multi-talented, world-famous video editor from Toronto, Canada. And he's worked on so many amazing projects that I can't list them all, but perhaps in a future podcast, you'll hear about everything he's done. So he's working with us on the upcoming Blu-ray DVD, our first one from Mexico, and it also encompasses all of the whole Final Battle tour. So you're going to hear highlights from an interview that I did with him. So we'll be jumping around a little bit. So hopefully that won't bother you too much, but we wanted you to get all the meat and none of the fat. So please look for the upcoming DVD, and we hope you enjoy the interview. Here we go.
When you say, okay, we're going to do the Final Battle tour, you obviously have to come together with the band members and start rehearsal. And sort of what's that like? I mean, because obviously you probably haven't seen them in a while.
Well, that's kind of like the last thing that happens. People think it's like, okay, we're going to do a tour. Let's just jump in the bus or jump on a plane and go. But honestly, there is so many logistical things that have to happen before you can even think of leaving your house, and months of work prior to that demands that you actually focus on all of the things that surround it. And most people would never, ever think about what goes into it. It's mind-boggling just to think about checking into hotel rooms with 50 to 100 people and all those pieces of luggage and all those room keys and all the names being right and so forth. I mean, that's just one aspect of a tour that people would never even think of. Well, yeah, big deal. You walk into a hotel. Yeah, if you walk in by yourself and you've got a carry-on bag over your shoulder, but when you're traveling with sometimes 50 and up to 100 people, it can be a logistical nightmare just to get into the hotel. Trucking, lighting, sound, the logistics of travel, you know, who's going to fly, who's going to drive, who's going to deal with all of those things, and then stage hands, and then venues, and we could go on forever, but it's a tremendous amount of work that has to be done before you could even think of having the band play a note. It may sound strange, and people think, well, what do you mean? There's 4 of you. What's the big deal? Just get up and play. Hey, that's the easy part after all the other millions of things are actually done so the band can play.
I came in for a big, not necessarily a one-off show, but it was still part of the Final Battle tour, which was Mexico. And I know, and people are going to see this on the Blu-ray, that a show like that takes at least a year just for the one show to prepare. Is there very much difference between a show of that magnitude, which is massive, versus another show that's on the tour?
Absolutely. We waited many, many, many years to go to Mexico because we couldn't find the right partner. And we knew we had a big following there waiting for us. And our Mexican fans would travel all over the world to see us. And this is a good time to clear up some confusion about Australia. Some people think that we don't want to go to Australia. Wrong. We're dying to go to Australia, and we have been. We just can't find the right promoter that's going to spend the fans' money to bring the band there. We know that it's pretty difficult to get down there. Australia's a long way, but hey, so's Mexico. So is everywhere else we play in the world. When the fans speak, and they speak loudly, and they say we want MANOWAR, well, that means they're going to buy the tickets. So the money is there. It's just finding the right promoter to say, okay, I'm willing to do this. And it took a long time, but the fans brought us to Mexico. And I have the same faith that our Australian fans are going to bring us there too. It may take more time, but when we go, just like Mexico, their faith will be rewarded and they will get 100%. And they won't get ripped off and they won't get fucked. It's that simple. And we have to bring our equipment across the world in boats and in planes and sometimes 50 people and whatever's necessary to give our fans. In this case, I'm talking about Australia because we haven't been there yet. And I know they're really suffering and wanting us to go there. We're suffering too. But we're not going to go there and play some smelly fucking shitty club with garbage gear and say, okay, that's what you've been waiting for 30 or more years. Not going to do it. Not going to happen. It'll go when it's going to go.
We've gone down the rabbit hole where we've been talking about equipment. So let's talk about the PA.
We know what the PA system is supposed to sound like about 150 feet away from the speakers. So basically where our sound engineers and lighting people are sitting. At that point is our reference for sound quality. We know exactly how many decibels should be achieved at that point. We know exactly what the frequency response, meaning how bright and crisp or how deep and thick the sound should be. And we also know the level of quality that we expect to be achieved at that position in terms of crystal clear sound. We demand that. I mean, the band has been known always for having crystal clear sound, big, impactful. And it takes a lot of equipment and a lot of effort and a lot of manpower to do that. People are quite often shocked when they see me there in the morning tuning the PA system with our technicians. They don't know why I'm there. But after we're done, then they realize it. And they realize that it was worth the torture that we put them through. I mean that in the nicest possible way, because quite often they're asked to do things and make adjustments that nobody asks. But after they work with us, then they have a little bit of respect in areas that they might not normally have, and they realize why we would spend as many hours as it takes, even if we have to postpone the show. And it's happened many times to get the sound right. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm not interested in postponing shows or making people stand out and be miserable. But if I have to, I will do it. And I've done it more than once because I'm the one that has to be responsible to myself for the sound quality and to the fans. And I think anybody would rather wait a little bit and get 100% of the value of their money rather than get 5% and have a miserable experience besides. So that's just a way of life for us.
I remember that's the way it was in Mexico. I think we were out at the venue at 3 a.m. and I know gear was coming in late, like all hands on deck. And I mean, the venue was good 90 minutes to an hour and 45 from the hotel. So when you're there till 3 or 4 in the morning, prepping everything, and then you're basically back at the hotel because the band's on stage the next night, that right there, just to get the sound perfectly the way that it needs to be, I mean, is obviously dedication right there.
Wait, you then have to talk a little bit about our 3 o'clock in the morning drone shots, which we are fortunate enough to have, documenting what you were just talking about.
I think the drone guy, you had actually found him a few days before. I think it was relatively quick from when you found him to when he was there. And he was there with us at 3 a.m. and he was flying the drone around while everybody was prepping. And people will see that in the production, whether the drone was actually being used in the actual production or some of the behind the scenes stuff. And even the one thing that the drone is fantastic for was even all the great day stuff that we got footage of them opening the gates and everybody coming in, and just the overall feeling of the entire show. The drone just adds another layer of depth to the entire production, which I think is well worth every penny that's spent on having it there.
No doubt. But how many people are going to say, okay, great, you're hiring me to shoot your show, but you want me there the day before at 3 o'clock in the morning to freeze my ass off and fly my drone in the night in pitch black? I mean, the guy was really cool, and he did it.
The funny thing is, it was cold in Canada in March, so I left with my winter jacket, but I stupidly left the jacket in the hotel room going, I haven't been to the venue yet, but it's Mexico City. This is going to be easy. Little did I know that we were actually in the mountains, and I think it was about like 6 degrees outside. It was freezing cold at this venue. I actually had to borrow the jacket of a crew member who was there.
So did I. Don't you remember? I had the security guy. I said, please give me your jacket. I'll pay you. And he's like, oh, no. I said, no, please give me it. But, the thing is, I thought the same thing you did. Well, we're going to be in Mexico because this was not my first time going. I had been there a couple different times for meetings with the promoters and the technical people and so forth and press events. And the weather was beautiful, but that was Mexico City, okay? We were about an hour and a half away in the mountains. And, oh, my God, I'll never forget walking outside from the dressing room, which was obviously very comfortable and relaxed. And I got out there on stage, and I'm like, oh, my God, it's freezing. And my instruments are very, very sensitive. I mean, I set my stuff up with micrometers, to make sure that, everything is in certain tolerances. And I set my stuff up when I was in Florida rehearsing before the tour. And, of course, it's moist there and warm there. And I'm like, this is perfect. This is going to be just like Mexico. And I got on stage, and it was really super, super cold. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, oh, boy, this is going to be real good for Eric, because really it's fucking freezing. If your throat muscles get cold, they tighten up. It's not good. I was really thinking to myself, oh, great. We waited all these years to play Mexico. We've got a great PA, great lights, big stage, great promoter. Everything's cool, 40,000 people. And look what happens. I'm not going to be able to play. People are going to say, oh, great. That was really worth coming to. But luckily, I was able to get warmed up a little bit after a while, but it was not easy at all by any means for any of us.
MANOWAR has a lot of hits. But for me, the one song that kind of defines them is Warriors of the World. I mean, did you ever think that it was going to be such a song that resonated with the fans?
Had no idea. We had recorded the record Louder Than Hell with Geffen Records. In 96, it was released, so we probably recorded around 95. And then we went on tour, and we left the label. Actually, I think we were invited to leave, if I remember correctly. But in any event, we left. And we had no record company at that time, so we had done a tour in 1998. It was Hell on Stage. And I think around 1999, we signed with Nuclear Blast Records. And it was a small label, and they were like, oh, we're just so honored to have MANOWAR. We're getting started. We had a big record recently. I said, really? Yeah, they said, well, we sold 4,000 records. It was a band called Hammerfall. Good band, actually. They were just getting started, and their first record had done well. And he's like, yeah, we believe in power metal. We want to sign MANOWAR. And we're like, great. So we signed with this small label, and everybody was like, why would a band like MANOWAR sign with that little label? They're nothing. They're nobody. But the guy that owned the company was a really nice guy. It was his personal money invested, and he had the heart and the will and the balls to sign MANOWAR. So they were just dying for the record. And I think the reason they were dying for the record was we might have even signed in 98 or 99, and it took until 2002 till the record was released. And they had everybody they knew calling me that I had worked with in Germany. how's the record coming along? Well, when do you think it'll be done? I mean, every day I'd get a different phone call from a different friend in the business. And I'm like, well, why are you calling me? What do you care? And they're like, well, just thought I'd know. And then I'd say, come on, why are you? They go, oh, yeah, well, Nuclear Blast wanted me to find out because, they're really, really worried about the record. I go, well, what the fuck are they worried about? And he said, well, they're worried about getting it. I said, well, they're going to get it. And they said, yeah. When? I said, when it's done. And they said, when will it be done? I said, when it's done, that's when it'll be. And then finally, after all of that, when the record was released, had it not been for Eminem releasing his record that very same week, poor planning on the part of the record company, by the way, if he didn't release his record, we would have been number one in the chart instead of number two. And that song was the driving force behind the record. It was, in their mind, what the single should be. And I was fine with that. And it just happened on its own. Really, the song just resonated with people. And yeah, from there, the record just sold and sold and sold. And it was the first gold record for Nuclear Blast. So they went from 4,000 records to, I think, 150,000 within a very short time. Kind of put their record company on the map, if I may say so.
Let's talk about memorable experiences from the final battle tour.
The one that sticks out as being, unusual and different was the trip to the, shall we say, the North Pole. I mean, that was actually Manuel's idea. He said, we're going to be in Norway and we're going to be kind of close. We might as well just fly to Svalbard. And I'm like, well, what's Svalbard? And he's like, oh, yeah, it's very close to the North Pole. And the town has 2,000 people and 2,500 polar bears, and it's an amazing place. And I'm like, okay. He's like, oh, it'd be great. It'd be a lot of fun. And, just that idea, that kernel of an idea. We talked to our promoter in Norway, and we actually flew there, and we just fell in love with the place. It's just pure nature there. And we actually went there, and it was cold. We just couldn't believe, how beautiful it was, and the people were really nice, and everything about it just hit us right. And coincidentally, they had a beautiful venue. They have government support for things like that, and just gorgeous little venue, theater style. And the people that worked there were like, Manowar's going to play here. Oh, my God, it'll be the biggest thing in town. And we were just thrilled. But, here's an example. They had really great production. They had a great PA system. They had great lights. We brought some bits of equipment of ours. And everything they had was absolutely doable for a show, and it was just amazing. And people were taking dog sled rides, and fans traveled from everywhere to get there. I couldn't believe it when we would start seeing comments on social media like, yeah, I'm coming from Australia, I'm coming from Argentina, I'm coming from Peru, just everywhere. It was truly an event. And it was so amazing that this gig turned out to be such an event. Who would have thought that people were dying to fly to the North Pole? I mean, if we played Hawaii, I could understand people wanting to fly there. But it's really not a shock because people that enjoy our music do come from all over the world.
And that was something that I thought was really interesting, when I sat down and sort of went back and looked at the final battle tour, which was looking at Russia as an example. I mean, everybody knows St. Petersburg and they know Moscow. Those are the two that they know. But I mean, Manowar played a whole bunch of places that you've probably never heard of. Samara, Rostov-on-Don, these are places that you don't normally hear about bands touring, but Manowar has fans. Manowar goes there to play these shows to these places that don't probably get an act the level of Manowar coming there on a regular basis.
Well, until recently, it's always been just Moscow and St. Petersburg. And we've, of course, had fans travel from all over the country of Russia. They'd say, oh, you have to come to Novosibirsk, you have to come here to Siberia, you have to come all over. And we wanted to. We knew that the Scorpions can easily play 30 shows a year in Russia. Okay, they are, of course, in a league of their own when it comes to that, but we always knew that there was an audience for Manowar in the whole country of Russia. And we're going to be going back there. And next time, we're going to be bringing more stuff, and we'll be able to do bigger concerts. It's worth the work and the effort. And as far as the touring and the traveling goes, why people don't normally go do that, well, Russia's a huge country. You can easily be flying 9 hours every other day, and not even cross half the country. It's huge. And the tours are very, very hard and very, very difficult. Traveling the whole journey, sometimes, 15, 18 hours, and then play the next day. And then get up in the morning with, not much sleep and do it again. And imagine doing that, 10, 15, 20 cities. Show, fly, or drive and fly, whatever it takes. But it's also rewarding when you see how happy the people are, and just the look on their face when they go, "Oh, we can't believe you came. We always hoped you would. And we've been waiting." And then you hear the stories. "Oh, I heard your music when I was 7 years old. My brother was playing it, and I, loved your band ever since then." And just all of this outpouring of, finally, you're here, and I believed in you, and you came here. That means you believe in me and our city. And I think there are very few things in life that can compare with that.
Well, you know that you're not going to get away without talking a little bit about the 40th and what's upcoming. Sort of taking a look at this tour, you've got the big sets, you've got the giant screens, you've got the Viking reenactors that are out there, through different parts of the show. I mean, what's coming for MANOWAR for the 40th?
I really don't know what's going to happen, but I do know we're going to have a big celebration. It has been 40 years, and when I look back on it, it's like, wow, where did 40 years go? It feels like 4 minutes to me. We'll just have to see what's going to happen. I really don't know, to be honest, but I know it's going to be big.